Beautiful people, this is your no-nonsense guide on how to play Cloak and Dagger. Let's begin. Number one, when you're using Dagger, every time you heal someone, you see this circle on the floor. Anyone within 8 meters is also going to be healed. See that circle on the floor? So that's why when I heal bot on the right, bot on the left is also healing. Number two is going to be every time I injure the enemy team, that same aura effect also plays a part. So let's say if I was injured, if I wanted to, I could heal myself with the enemy team, and even a teammate who's fully healed, I could heal myself with him as well. Stop using your bubbles for yourself unless you're getting dove on every single time, and even then there are other options first. But unless you're getting dove on, your health is extremely low, no one else is around, they're attacking you full tilt, try to just heal yourself with teammates like this. That's the best way. That's the most effective way because your teammates need those bubbles. Next. Now, your bubble you should be using on your teammates, not when they're full health. You should be using it on your DPS, any squishy characters. When they're about half, I would say, is the best time to utilize it. Because number one, as you see, that entire time for 6 seconds, they get 300 HP, okay? 300 HP. So not only are they going to benefit the most from that, right? You're also going to have it in an emergency when they need bulk healing. Think of your bubble as a third support, or rather another support on like alongside yourself. You need someone else. Let's say if I wanted to, right? Oh, these two are fighting alongside each other over here. What I can do, the beauty is kind of throw a bubble on them, maybe heal them a little bit. And now let's say somebody else over here also needs my help. I can heal them. While for 6 seconds, I know these guys, as long as they stay in the bubble, of course, are also going to be absolutely fine. Keep that in mind. Use that tool as well. The bubble now also, which I don't see enough people use this, but let's say there's a teammate fighting up here. You can actually throw that on the bottom here, so anyone standing on top can be healed. If there is a Groot wall, let's pretend this pillar right here is a Groot wall. Somebody's cut off from you from the other side, on top of obviously throwing your daggers off surfaces, like maybe like this, and it'll bounce back and maybe hit your teammate back there, right? You could also throw this right on the Groot wall. So yes, they're taking damage of 60 HP a second, but it'll only be now at least minus 50 of that 60 HP, and hopefully they see the bubble and kind of like walk around. It might just give them just enough time to walk around the wall and maybe mitigate some of that damage for them. If you use it on yourself, then for your teammates that are getting bursted down in the future, you're not going to have anything for them. It does come back every 6 seconds, but keep that in mind. Also with the daggers, they will try to find their nearest teammate at any given point, bouncing it off walls. Always be shooting with Cloak and Dagger. They will always try to find your teammates, and outside of always trying to find your teammates, you can bounce it off the walls and hit the enemy, but it doesn't try to find them. It has to be a precise bounce. Now, I don't think I went over this, but the E ability that you have, I believe, excuse me, because I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, it gives a healing boost of about 10 to 15% for about 4 seconds. So when you couple these two together, that heal goes up even faster, making the bubble an even better tool in your kit. Now, too often I think I see as well nowadays, too many people want to stay on Cloak way too often. The rhythm of this and how it should play out almost in any occasion is you're really shooting your teammates. Let's say you throw the bubble whenever they're getting low, right? Then you switch to Cloak, you throw your window, and then you go right back to healing. Now, if you have people that are low like that, sure, maybe you take them out, but you should at most be only on Cloak for no more than 2 seconds at a time. That window that you throw, they are debuffed for 2 seconds at 20%. That debuff is 20%. So yes, you can do this, but you have to keep this in mind. The longer you stay here as Cloak, the less healing your team is ultimately going to get. And maybe Cloak and Dagger's coolest thing that they have by far is when you use your M2 ability, you as well as your teammates are untargetable. It means you can't take any damage during that time when you hit that. And I believe you stay untargetable for about 2 seconds. Typically, it takes about 4 seconds to kill almost anybody, any squishy rather, when you're just holding your M1 like this. If you use the window into this, it takes about 3 seconds, but truly that is still too much time. You really want to debuff them for your teammates, unless, let's say, the odds are in your favor it's maybe a 6v4, 6v3. A couple of their people already died or are on extremely low health, and a couple daggers even. Remember, if your teammates are fighting up close and personal, instead of just continuously healing them who are at full HP like this guy, what you can just do is hit these guys and your teammate will also get healed at the same time. I think she's a character that can play at any single range. I'll be honest. You can play her all the way back here and you'll get a lot of value, sure. But also, if let's say you needed some health, the beauty is you could play close and you would, even if you took a little bit of damage, you will also be able to heal yourself simply by doing this, which is great. If you're playing closer, you also get the ability to shield your teammates. You can use that as a tactic to run away, etc. But truly, I would say you never really want to play too close, because just like a good referee in a boxing match or a good referee in the NBA, you are doing the best job when no one even notices you. When the enemy team is not even looking for you because they're so focused on the front line and your DPS, and you're just able to sit back and kind of relax and heal and chill a little bit. That's when you're going to be the best. So moving up too close is only going to make it worse for you ultimately, right? You don't want to get noticed. You don't want to be bothered. You want to stay in the back line. You want to be able to heal uninterrupted. Also, I know people are going to tell me to say this, so I'm just going to say it. If you reload, her regular reload takes about almost 2 seconds. If you reload instead by switching back and forth, it is faster. 100%. It's definitely faster. Are you going to switch every single time? I don't know. If you're about that life, do it. I don't typically do it myself. Maybe in moments where it really mattered, I would do it. But just keep that in mind. You can reload faster just by switching characters. Here's a really strong tactic that you can also utilize if you're getting dove on. And let's say you don't have your bubble because you have been using it for your team. What you can do is switch into Cloak. Then you're going to hit your M2 and you're going to go as high as possible into the air. As you're going higher and higher into the air, start scouting for where your teammates are, right? Because you have the ability to heal yourself off of your teammates. So go high into the air. And again, it takes about 6 seconds for that bubble to come back. But hopefully you won't even have to use it. Hopefully you can just go all the way up into the air and then actually just land on a teammate. And remember, when you land on a teammate, you could just heal them. And as you heal them, you heal yourself. So making it so that you keep that bubble for still when you really need it. Too many times I see cloaks come out of their M2 ability way too quickly. The person diving you is probably still looking for you. So hold on to it for a second. Let them run away. Let them find a new target. They're probably just not completely standing still under you more often than not. So utilize that tactic in order to save your bubble more and save yourself. Another thing to keep in mind is how fast you get your ult charge. I think so many people don't realize the more you heal, the faster you get your ult charge. I know this sounds crazy, but hear me out. The more you heal and the more you do damage, the faster your ult comes back. I have a video showing you right now the difference if you use your bubble at around 50% or maybe even a little bit lower on some of your teammates, especially when they need that bulk healing. When you do that, the difference in ult charge time after time after time, you'll get it back so quickly because you're utilizing that bubble when it's getting the most amount of value. When your teammates need that bulk healing, you call in that bubble to come in and just you utilize that bubble to get 300 extra HP for your teammates. And when you utilize it this way, you will consistently get your ult charge faster and faster and faster. If your teammates are, let's say, currently not in a fight, maybe behind a wall, don't necessarily need the bubble, make sure you hold on to it as well. Use it when it makes sense, because you'd be very surprised on how often these moments happen in game where all of a sudden your teammates have 100 health and then are down to their last 25 HP. And if you have that bubble in those emergency moments, that's how you keep your tank from dying and then the enemy team pushing forward. That's how you keep yourself from dying certain times and stopping the enemy team from pushing forward. Your DPS, all the like. That bubble, the bubble is the #1 reason why most people lose their games as Cloak and Dagger. You'll see that you did 30,000, 40,000. I've even seen 70,000 healing. and still you lose games because you're paying attention and utilizing your kit the wrong way and paying attention to the divers too much. You might be, when they're attacking you, you might be paying too much attention. Mark it for your team and keep it moving. Lest they are actually a full-on threat, ignore them. A lot of people misuse this ult way too often, so let's talk about it a little bit. It stays for about 14 seconds. The first path you put down doesn't go away till about 9 seconds. The last one, this last strip that I just put down here, 14 seconds from when I started, this last path is gonna go away. So you always wanna make sure you position your last strip where you want your team to be, or roughly where you wanna be towards the end of that. So let's say you're pushing the cart forward on a convoy mission, right? You might not want to put it behind the convoy, right? You might want to lead it in front. It depends on what's going on, right? And how the fight's going, but you might want to put it in front of the convoy so that at the end of this fight, you still have, after all the other ones start disappearing, you still have that for a little bit longer. And then get your timing right. Once that starts going away, then you start pulling back behind the convoy if you have to, so forth and so on. So if you're getting dove on, here's the thing. And I used to tell this to a lot of people. Oh, I don't care if they dive me. I can handle myself. I can fight. Typically what I would do was I would bubble my feet, turn into cloak, use my window, and then just attack. Most people you can actually take out pretty darn easy using that maneuver right there. And if it doesn't go too well, you could just go up into the air, hold it, and by the time you're coming back down, you probably have your bubble. You could kind of recycle, rinse, and do it all over again, right? But the issue becomes, in that entire time, let's call it 5-6 seconds, that you're utilizing that entire little system, what can happen is your teammates not getting healed. They're bothering you enough. Yeah, sure, maybe you survive, but the rest of your team dies, and now you're left alone. So you really have to get better with ignoring attackers, divers who are coming at you. Call it out to your teammates and be just a little bit more elusive. I'll try to show you some gameplay in the background to show you exactly what I mean. Push them away when you can, but you don't want to pay too much attention, because what do you need to be doing? You need to be healing, or else you guys are going to lose. So call it out to your teammates. Maybe move in towards your teammates so that they can see, if you're not someone who's big on comms, so they can see that you're being hit, and then maybe they'll help you out, or just ping them, right? Ping them for your team, so that they know what's going on. Sometimes truly the best way to learn also what to do is to see what not to do. This was a Lord Cloak and Dagger that I actually had on my team who got MVP. But when I show you this, you will see why this was not the way to play her. We won despite this Cloak and Dagger playing as aggressively as they were playing. They made countless bad decisions, bad uses of their bubble, bad decision making that ultimately left me, their tank in this game, hiding behind walls, terrified I was gonna die at every single corner, because it never seemed like my healer, my support, had my back. I was not able to push the point the way that I wanted to. They kind of just played for themselves, and stat lines will sometimes confuse and make you think that you're doing a lot better than what you really are. So let's take a quick look on how not to play Cloak and Dagger. So as we start here, you'll see she'll immediately put a bubble down that serves no real purpose. Immediately goes into to Cloak, but then kind of leaves me up top fending for myself, right? Because she's not healing me. Now she's going for this person. Now it's great that she gets the kill, but the problem becomes now your tank is playing behind everybody else. Now we're relying on one other healer pretty much to be healing us at this time. Again, here and there, she will make decent moves, but the problem becomes those 10% moments where you should be paying attention to your team. See, now as Doctor Strange, I'm having a little bit more confidence going forward. The heals are coming for me, so it feels good. And as soon as I gain that confidence, it immediately goes away because I see that my teammate starts to pull back a little bit, starts to go a little bit too aggro, and then it becomes a bit more of an issue, right? Switching there for a half a second is not that big a deal. So far, so good. She preemptively puts a bubble at my feet there. It's not the worst idea ever. I understand why she's doing it. I will also say she's kind of ulting here for no purpose whatsoever. And ulting all over the point, which doesn't really do much. You're going to have people run. You know, your team is also separated. They weren't even pushing the point. Don't underutilize it either. You see Bucky's running for his life right in front of her, and he's begging for a heal. Her bubbles are all over the place. She now, I believe, this might be the moment she goes on a side quest to kill a Bucky. There is no rhyme or reason you should be doing this. Less so when you actually have a teammate. If you could just play the point and maybe heal Bucky, throw Bucky a bubble while he's fighting over there, put it on the corner for him, that would make more sense. Now, as you can see, look where I had to run to. I had to run for my life because I wasn't gaining any heals at that point, right? So here again, she goes back to having a good portion of the game. Bucky was just about to die. Bucky just died right next to her. Sometimes that happens, but it was very avoidable. She was right in front of him. Smart move for her to bubble her own feet there. Unnecessarily use her M2 to avoid Psylocke. So now if she actually does need it, she might not have it in time. For example, right there where she actually dies. Again, completely makes no sense why she is utilizing this ult. There's no rhyme or reason to do so. We were not in the middle of a fight. We were not engaged by any means. She had no reason to also go up and utilize her M2, considering that she had just put down her ult. And then because she used that M2, she didn't have it when she actually needed it. Cooldowns are so important to know when you're utilizing this character. Here again, she's in Cloak for way too long. She is pretty savvy with these. She was pretty good with blocking or dodging the strange ults. At that point, I'm looking for a little bit more assistance. Here, if she could just heal me or the rest of her team, then we could play a little bit more aggressively. You can see how she's in Cloak way too often and is causing more of a mismatch for our team than anything else. She does a great job by avoiding Jeff here on the floor as well. But again, at what cost? She's again utilizing her ult, and Lord have mercy, I'm not gonna lie and say that we all haven't been here. Who hasn't messed it up before? She then takes this 1v1 fight versus Doctor Strange in the basement, passes the health pack, allows him to get to it as well. All the while, her team is dying up top. Is now going to take her 10 seconds to respawn, then about another 10 seconds to 15 seconds to get back into the match. She's utilizing all her cooldowns. She should be playing the back line. This is one of those moments. Yes, can you play up front? You can, but then you become the center of attention, which you never want to become. So even though this girl is making all the wrong decisions, we are finding a way somehow to still win a couple of these games. And this is when stats don't tell the full story. A lot of times people will think, oh, well, my stats and I'm MVP, you know, I'm doing so well, but it's not the case. Here again, just bad management. She falls down the hole and gets destroyed. She should be playing a little bit further back, especially because the entire team was still there. Now here, she gets a little bit too sidetracked on going against this other Loki. Once you realize a character's not going to die within 2 seconds, you should probably fall back. I am now trying to hold the point as well as somebody else, but we have no heals on the point. She's using her ult from Uganda, because Uganda be stupid doing some crazy shit like that. It didn't really make sense. I understand she was trying to save us, but it was an underutilized ult again. Here she goes right back into Cloak for entirely too long. Again, misutilization of her bubbles. I consistently have to run away as Doctor Strange because she's consistently as Cloak. And because I'm not getting any proper support, this is what happens. This is the side of Cloak and Dagger that you never truly want to see, that you hope are not on your team. Look how long she's taking trying to do that. And I understand why. She's so close to getting a kill. Mark it for your team. Fight them when it makes sense, but keep the rest of your team alive. The more you die, the worse off it is for your team. Somehow we pulled out a victory. Somehow she was also the MVP. But don't let this fool you. This is not the proper way to play her. We won despite this Cloak and Dagger, and these stats don't always tell the full truth. Now let's go through all of your counters, who you counter, how you counter them, all if you should fight somebody, if you shouldn't, so forth and so on. But when it comes to tanks, you really don't want to fight any tank whatsoever, but you want to be very careful of the tanks that can cause a really big problem for you. And the top 3 tanks that can give you such a problem are going to be Strange, because he has so much damage output. He can use his E ability to release his dark magic to hit you for 130. If he hits all of his shots on you as well, I believe he hits for 90. And if he whips you, you're pretty much one tap right after that. So you have to be very, very careful. Thor's another one. If he has his Awaken ability, you're going to die. It is a lot of damage output. His Awaken ability is when he is floating in the air, his hair is up, and he's throwing lightning at you. Avoid him. And Groot is another one. If he walls you off, if you're not attentive, your HP can just disappear in a second. So don't fight him. When it comes to DPS, you can fight most. Again, most of these, as you've been seeing my gameplay, avoid the fights when you can, fight when you absolutely have to, but avoiding is what you really want to do. With Magic, you never want to fight her. She is a monster. She can 3-shot you. She can take you out of your bubble. Don't do it. Squirrel Girl, only if she actually grabs you with her nuts, then it becomes a problem, but otherwise she's not that hard to kill. And as long as with anybody that you're going against, remember, you either bubble at your feet, turn into Cloak, use his E ability, and then fight from there, or just run away altogether. It's going to be your best bet. Spidey, you can kill him, but if he pulls you out of your bubble, it becomes a bit of an issue, so keep that in mind. Namor, with his ability to go into his flight and shield himself, as well as having his squids, and if he has Luna, even more squids, not really worth the fight. Bucky, you don't want to fight him because he can just pull you out of your bubble, as well as pretty much kill you pretty fast. So unless he misses all his shots, you're going to have a bad time. Wolverine can pull you out of your bubble, so just be very aware. Anybody that essentially, as you can see, pulls you out of your bubble is going to give you a harder time than normal. Iron Fist, he can block a lot of your shots and then have 400 plus HP, and he's pretty much a mini tank, so you don't want to really fight him either. And then last but not least is Mr. Fantastic. He is actually a mini tank and you never want to fight him. Any other supports you can kind of fight. Again, I would say avoid most, but this is the hit list of heroes you should never fight. So now let's talk about all the ults that you can counter either with your ult or your invulnerability with your M2 as Cloak. I'm going to tell you the two first off that you already have to be in Cloak as the character Cloak, not as Dagger, as Cloak, in order to avoid with your M2 ability. There's 2 characters that you have to be ready. And if you're not as Cloak, you die. Number 1 is Doctor Strange. If Doctor Strange is being a little creep and is flying up in the air and is taking a little flank to catch you off guard, to hit you with his Agamotto, if you're not already as Cloak, then you will probably die as him. Or if you use your Q ability, if you have it, then in fact you can run away. But typically what happens is by the time you've used yours, by the time you get your ult at 100%, he has his at about 70%. So oftentimes what he can do is you might use yours, and then now by the time he has his, you don't have yours anymore. Or he can also kill you out of your ult. So what you want to be careful with is if you use your ult, you want to do it as Cloak so that when you come out of the ult, then you are actually as Cloak. You could then hit your M2 ability immediately to dodge his Agamotto if he doesn't time it absolutely perfectly, where you don't have enough time to hit your M2. Keep that in mind. Number 2 is going to be Spidey. If you are not prepared for Spider-Man, you won't be able to switch over and use your M2 as Cloak. You have to be as Cloak already. So spot him, spot Spidey, spot Agamotto, Doctor Strange when they're coming towards you, because those are the only 2 you have to be ready. Everything else, you have more than enough time. So let's get to the rest. Now, obviously, I'm only going to tell you the ones that make sense. Captain America is not one that really makes sense. I'm not even going to say Hulk either. Run away from Hulk. You don't really want to use your ult there unless it's absolutely pertinent. Oftentimes, everyone can just focus him and then he's no longer a problem, so you don't always have to use it there. So I'm only going to tell you where to ult, when to M2, when it makes sense. When you're going against a Groot, if you use your Q ability, if you have your ult, which a lot of times what you want to do is pay attention to the enemy team. If they have characters that you can counter by having your ult ability, you might want to save it for them. That's a big thing with Cloak and Dagger and any other support character that has a defensive ult. So if he's on the team, then I might want to save my ult. Specifically, when he goes to grab everybody, you can utilize your ult to remove yourself, release yourself from that grasp, and then go back and just heal your team over and over. If there is a Moon Knight coupled with him, your team might just be dead. So just be advised. Venom, you can easily use your M2 to avoid it, but also it's not that big a deal. You can just heal everybody out of that. He'll get a little bit of health, but you should be fine. Magneto now will also very oftentimes counter you. So you want to do one of two strats. You want to either have a Magneto on your team that can bubble you and keep you safe while you're trying to utilize your ult ability, because he can actually just kill you out of yours. So keep that in mind. Or number two thing that you can do is fly up into the air. And once you fly up into the air as Cloak, then use your Q ability and you'll start coming down slowly. And as you do that, you're just a little bit harder to hit. Also, if you happen to have a Loki on your team, he can actually utilize your ult first. And even if he dies, your ult ability will actually stay on the map. His ult ability as Cloak and Dagger will stay on the map while yours won't. I think it mimics the main character. So as long as I'm on the map and Loki dies, his ult will actually stay. But if I die, then the ult will completely disappear. You can also break line of sight against Magneto and utilize that in order to try to stay away from him, as well as use your M2 ability against him if you need to. Thor is very simple. Just utilize your M2 ability close to last second. It stays for 2 seconds. His charge up is about maybe 3 to 4 seconds. So you have more than enough time to avoid it. It should be very simple. With Punisher, it really depends. If you can get to your team, then sure, utilize it with your Q ability. But otherwise, hide and run for cover. Oftentimes your team doesn't even stand on it anyways, or they're too far apart, spread out. They're too separated. It might be better to withhold your ult ability. With Storm, if she's on the opposite team, absolutely hold your ult until she uses hers so that you can counter her. And if you use everything that we spoke about earlier in the video, you can make sure you can keep yourself on par with when she gets her ult. If you're using your bubbles the right way, if you're attacking the right way, if you're healing in general the right way, she actually gets her ult faster than you can get your ult. But if you do everything that this video said before, you can get it back with her at the same time. When Magic has her ult, you can utilize it to counter her if she does a lot of big damage, but you might want to hold off just a little bit to see if your team can kill her first. Hela, if there is a Hela on the opposing team, you can in fact use your ult to outlive it, but also keep in mind, if you have a Doctor Strange, he can also just block her. Or if, let's say, you have an Iron Man, oftentimes Iron Man might go up there, or anybody else, maybe even a Punisher, can focus her, shoot her out of the air very, very quickly. So just take your time and realize you might not have to use it just yet. Of course, any ults that I don't bring up is just not pertinent. You don't have to use anything really. Like Squirrel Girl is not somebody I'm really going to bring up. Just avoid the damn squirrels or shoot them out. You shouldn't shoot them out. Somebody else should. Moon Knight is probably one of the biggest issues as well. You don't really have enough time, half the time, to react to Moon Knight using his ult. So you have to be very attentive on where he is when you're playing against him. And as soon as you see him pick up his hand, that is his telltale sign. There is he picks up his hand as if he's holding up a playing card or something like bingo, or that made no sense, but you know what I mean. He's holding up his hand, and if he's doing that, start spreading away from your team a little bit. And either way, when there's a Moon Knight, you shouldn't be so close to your team anyways, because then it starts to bounce off of all of you guys and you're going to be the prime target anyways. So stay away from your team so that you avoid that, hopefully. And wherever you see the red circle on the floor, start walking away from said red. Iron Man is one of the easiest by far to avoid. All you have to do is maximum, turn into Cloak, pulse, use your M2 ability to avoid it. He's very simple to avoid. Scarlet Witch is also the same thing. She's very easy to avoid. Once she uses it, just destroy her right afterwards. Use your M2 always to block your team. By the way, in a lot of these occasions, there might be instances where you might not even be close to your team. But what you want to do is actually move up towards your team, the rest of the team that maybe can't get away from Scarlet Witch. right? Let's say you have a Groot on your team and he doesn't have a way of running away or shielding himself, or maybe you're in the back line, he's a little further forward. Run up to your team and utilize your M2 to save them. Don't just stay back and watch them die. You have something that can save your team. They might just swing through it, but if you can at least save one person, then it's worth. Now, I don't know if anybody got this right, but the only ult that you cannot use your M2 with is actually Namor. Namor is the only one that you can't use your M2 with. It locks down all movement abilities. If you try to use it, it actually won't allow you to. All you could ever do is walk away from his ult. So just walk away from the center and you should be absolutely fine. If Bucky is ever doing armed and dangerous again, the best thing that you can do is, one, if your team is about to die, you probably won't be able to heal them fast enough because of that red bar that shows up and kills them faster. So what you want to actually do is either shield them with your M2, is a huge possibility, right? You might be able to shield them as soon as he's coming down to punch them, or you can use your Q ability to actually just protect everybody. Use your ult to save people from pretty much getting team wiped. Iron Fist, I mean, you can, if he gets killed immediately, then don't worry about it. Otherwise, I don't ever really use my Q for him. Just kind of run away from him and then keep healing your team from far. I wouldn't really use my ultimate ability for him. Psylocke, there are times where you can get killed out of your Q ability if you're the only one in there. And if you're fast enough into your reaction time, you can actually use your M2 to retreat from her as well. Those are all the ones that are probably going to give you a problem. Outside of Jeff, you can also obviously just use your M2, or even if you use your Q ability, your CC immune, which just means you're immune from any sort of staggers or sleeps or stuns of any sort. So you won't be grabbed if you're using your Q ability. You want to make sure that you're not utilizing your ult if you don't have to, simply because the other team uses it. You might be ahead. Your team might be winning. Your team's health bar, look at that. If let's say the other Cloak and Dagger used their ult, but your team isn't dying, they've maybe misused theirs, you don't have to use yours. You can wait. Sometimes also, not sometimes, always ask your teammate, hey, do you mind if I use my ult first? Especially as Cloak and Dagger, I think you should almost always use yours first because you get it the fastest. You can get it under 30 seconds actually. So make sure you utilize it. You come on when you're using it versus maybe the other people. If there is a huge offensive ult coming in from your team, let's say Storm is about to use hers, don't use your ult. She might clear out the entire team for you and you won't even have to use it. So be very intelligent when you use this. If there's a Punisher about to use his ult, don't use your ult. If there's a Namor who maybe just use his, you might not have to use yours. If there is a Moon Knight destroying the whole back line, why would you use yours? Pay attention to that. Make sure you don't have to use yours. Keep in mind, there are maps that actually move, right? So in said maps where the terrain starts to move, be very careful because your ult will be wasted. The ult sometimes in certain maps where the elevation changes higher or lower, or the map goes left and right, wherever you put it, it's going to stay on that surface and move with the surface. So in that one map where the floor moves up and down, if you put it down already and the floor moves down, it's going to be so high up, no one's going to be healed. Or if the floor moves up, it's going to be so far down, nobody can get the heals from that either. Keep that in mind. I think the map switches at about 50%. So if that helps you out, just keep that in mind. And it also switches at a certain time frame as well, but I don't know those times. And I think that's it. I hope you guys really learned something here. Hopefully you go into your Cloak and Dagger games a little bit more confident, knowing that you're making the right decisions. If there's anything I missed, please do me a favor, and I'm sure you'll let me know. Put it down in the comments below. If you did like this video, it would mean so much to me if you liked and subscribed. I'm going to put out more content like this, more guides in the future, really hard, in-depth content of how to get better. I'm currently doing solo queue to Grandmaster. I'm currently Diamond 2. Never played any sort of hero shooter like this before, and I'm having a blast. I'm playing as Cloak and Dagger, as Doctor Strange, as Wolverine, and filling in when I need to. So yeah, let me know if you ever want to see this. I'll be live on twitch.tv/Adonisaurus. Thank you so much. Take care, y'all.